This is our special council committee meeting, November 10th, 2015. I'd like to go ahead and just start with a quick moment of silence and prayer, just to recognize tomorrow is Veterans Day, and just to take a moment to think about the people who've made substantial sacrifices to serve for our freedom. A couple things just to keep in mind here. Praying for troops who've died in combat and for the loved ones that they've left behind. The veterans who suffer from wounds of war, the veterans who are haunted by the invisible wounds of war, the veterans in hospitals, and those whose needs for health care still go unanswered by the government. Pray for the caretakers who minister to our veterans, and pray for the troops who are still in harm's way throughout the world. Take a quick moment. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. The only item on the agenda this evening is to talk about the Economic Development Finance Committee. Mr. Blankenship, Ms. Pitts, Mr. Blankenship.
Also, we'd like to say happy birthday to all of the former Marines in the House, November 10th.
I've got my green light in the window.
It was the first thing that John sent me this morning. It was happy birthday. Yeah. He never forgets. I've passed out a memo. I know Mr. Wickman sent a memo out earlier, maybe in the week, about this. What we did, a little history in the background of this. We saw 2013, we'd seen over the last several years a declining 911 revenue from landlines. It had been declining. Our side of it had been declining about $1,000 a month is what we were seeing as a decline, and that went on for several years. Most of you know we had all the other cities here in our dispatch center. We had it as a separate dispatch fund at the time, and the way it was funded was through all those 911 fees. Then after we went in deficit, we shared the overtures proportionately with our cities that we were providing the service for. 2012, they decided to leave us, go back to the county. At that point in time, the county instituted a parcel fee of $85. I think that's what the original one was. That has since been lowered to $60, I believe, or $65, one or the other. That's how they're funding part of their system now, with no landline fee on it either. We all still get cell money. The cell money is collected by the state for 911. I think that fee, somewhere around 40-some cents is what we get back. The local centers get back. That's based on zip code where your bill goes, okay? So if you live in the city of Erlanger and your bill is being sent someplace else, that's not part of what we would get, okay? So it's all on where that bill goes, okay, on the 41018. That's how that's set up. Just so everybody knows the history of how all that goes. There's been talk for years, and I mean years, of raising that 911 cell money, or that fee, to raise more money. The legislature has never done that. I've been in several meetings in Frankfort where the discussion has been, what do we do with it then? Okay, how is it going to be split up? Too many people are trying to get their hands in that pot, basically. Well, no, we need, if you raise it, the state, we want this much more, or even the ad districts and some of those other kind of entities who are in charge of mapping for the what are they called, Matt? The maps that they use for the dispatch centers. Each center has to have a map about their territory. So GIS, that's it, that mapping. I knew somebody come up with it. Anyway, everybody has to have that. We're lucky up here because PDS does it for us, you know, and they provide those maps to the state every year. So every area of the state doesn't have a PDS. So where does that fall back on? The state police at one point in time said they were going to do it until the state police decided it was too expensive. So the state police didn't decide to do it. So that conversation is going to continue, but until somebody decides how to divvy up that money and where it's going to go, it'll always be in limbo. And I don't know when that'll occur. We do know that it will be talked about again in January in Frankfurt in the legislature. It'll be one of the topics. As a matter of fact, you see on the end of mine, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but it's, you know, KLC, it's always been, for the past several legislative sessions, it's been one of KLC's top priorities to figure out a stable funding source for 911. Again, it's up there this year, so we know they'll talk about it in January. Was asked to put together some numbers. That's what you've got in front of you, about what our expenses are and where our revenues come in. And as you can see, our expenses are right at that $1 million mark, 1,000,000, about 11,000. And the revenue that we have coming in right now is about 1.2 million. Okay? But you see, part of that revenue is the cell money, the 911 cell money. We have taken all of that money and we have set it aside in a capital fund. You'll see in there that we used part of it last year to add a second police channel to it. That's why that money's there. That money is for capital improvements. So if we always have that money there, it'll be there. I'll just give you one example. Kenton County is talking about building a new digital radio system. They have put that price tag at about $15 million for the county. Well, part of that expense is going to be ours, any way we look at it. But the major expense will come in replacing the portable radios that each of our public safety people carry and those radios in the vehicles. Those are costs that aren't in that $15 million that you're hearing from the county. It's not there, okay? Those radios today that we're buying are somewhere in the $600 or $700 range. When we go buying digital radios, that number will jump to $3,200, $3,300. Okay, we got looking around here. We have just about 100 radios in the city. Now you figure that difference in that cost out. That's why we're setting that money aside, that 911 cell money, is to make those purchases when that comes around. And it's going to come around. It's just a matter of when. This radio system is already outdated. It's been outdated for a long, long time. Digital has been around for how long? Dave, Matt? In the 70s. So even the technology that they're talking about going to is, 40, 50 years old already, okay? So what we are working on, with the system that we're using, it's the old VHF, UHF radio system. It's outdated. They don't make parts for any of these things any longer. So our radio towers will all have to be redone. Now we're lucky because we only have one site, which is right here, that we're gonna have to worry about. We have another one on Kenton Lands Road on the water tower, and there's another one down on Pleasure Isle Drive. Those are satellite sites to this one. But we will have to make some upgrades to those too when this new digital system comes in. So that's why we set this plan in place to put that money aside. So if you see, you take that money away, so with the funding source that we have with our contract with Ellesmere and the Crescent Springs and the money that the franchise fee is bringing in, we're about $40,000 to the good. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. Yeah. So, our recommendation is that we continue the franchise fee. Several reasons for that. On the back page of this, talk about, one, it's a proven, stable form of funding right now for us. We have no staff time involved in collecting this fee. Utility companies collect it, they send it to us on a quarterly basis. If, in fact, you institute a parcel fee or a unit fee, like Campbell County has done and like Kenton County has done, how do we collect it? That's the big question. How do we bill it? Our tax bill right now is very, very clean. It's got our property tax on it. Where do we put that? Do we put it on our tax bill? And then what do we do if somebody refuses to pay it? And you'll see in the ordinances by Kenton County and Campbell County both, they make it a misdemeanor offense for you not to do that. So then what are we going to do? We're going to use staff time to track those people down that haven't paid that fee, and we're going to go file that misdemeanor charge, then have a court hearing to see if in fact the judge is going to say, yeah, you need to pay the fee. It's just a convoluted system. I don't know how they're enforcing it, even if they are even going after those people that don't pay that fee. We're not sure about that at all times. But I'm going to tell you right now, we don't have the staff to go down that road. If we do, who are we going to put it on? Sherry and her staff of sending out the tax bills and then collecting it on the other side. It's going to be too burdensome to do that. You know, and if we're looking on the enforcement side, how are we going to enforce it to do that? I truly believe that in the next couple of years, you know, the state will figure out a way to put some kind of funding mechanism in place. This has been on the table for way too long. They'll get together at some point in time and figure it out. In the meantime, we're on our own trying to figure out how do we keep operating on a day-to-day basis. This is the best solution that we've come up with. I do believe, and you heard me say it at the last meeting, that probably that unit fee may be the most fair way to do it. Maybe. But it's just how do you implement it? How do you collect it? How do you do all those things? So I think it brings some other things like that. The other part of this is we're in discussions right now with Kenton County. We have been having ongoing discussions with Kenton County, you know, seeing if in fact there is some, you know, advantage to us to merge these centers. We've had those ongoing talks. Dave Leonard is here tonight. Dave is a part of that committee that we've set up internally to meet with the committee that they have set up. They have had some initial meetings, you know, about operations and things like that and how that would look going forward. That's going to be a slow process. Even if we do it and we decide tomorrow we're going to go with Kenton County, I can tell you there is a whole phase of implementation to that is not going to be done overnight. It's going to take us a while to do it. Mr. Gallen and Mr. Wickman can speak on, you know, how to maybe put a clause in this franchise fee, you know, or the time limits of the franchise fee if we don't want to go 3 years, if you want to go something less than 3 years. To do it and implement it. I know that Ms. Skidmore, when we talked about doing this the very first time when we implemented this, you were the one that was against the 5-year. And I think your whole comments and everything was why we switched from 5 years to 3 years, because our initial proposal was for us to go 5 years with this, and we ended up doing it for 3. So I think I was right, wasn't it?
If you say,
Take credit.
I plead the senility thing.
Senility.
But we had those conversations right in this room 3 years ago when we implemented this about the time frame to put this in. I know we had suggested 5. Most of the franchise fees ordinances were at least 5 years. And I think that's the way that one came about to do it. You know, you talk about, you know, it's a fee. It is there. But it is one that we have found to be very stable as it goes along. It will spike, of course, in the wintertime or in the summertime when utilities are higher at times, you know, and then it goes down. But if we look at that, these are 3-year averages. And what I did was I rounded it up to the nearest 1,000, so we didn't have all those other dollars in there. And I took the 3-year average of all the expenses that we've had and all of the income that we had. And that's right exactly about where they're at. If you want to look at what we charge Crescent Springs and Ellesmere, we figured this way back when we started these contracts. And the last time we did the Crescent Springs contract, we included dispatch in the policing contract. They didn't want to have 2 separate contracts. They wanted to have one, so we combined them. About 60%, if we look at this population-wise, and if we look at total, I think it's about 32,000 people we're serving. Okay. Out of that, we have about 60% of those people. Ellesmere's got about 25%. Crescent Springs has 15. That's how we came up with these numbers, and that's where these prices have been ever since. And it's worked. You can see it by the numbers. I don't know how we could get any closer than what we are today. So that's where we're at. You know, I know as a staff, I've talked to Greg a lot, you know, on the financial side of it, and talking to Sherry, Missy, you know, about how we would go about doing the collection part and doing some things. Our staff recommendation would be to extend this for that 3-year period at the same rate that it is right now. And I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have.
I just want to say that I'm all for this. Even before I saw the numbers, I just figured it was a no-brainer because I assumed this was the easiest way to go, and it looks like it is. Plus, you know, you're covering all the expenses that you have, so I don't see any reason to switch or do anything differently. I like the plan, and a lot of people probably don't even notice that little surcharge that they're paying.
We have received, as far as I know, you know, I think we've only received 1 or 2 comments over the years, you know, about it.
That's what I'm saying.
And I can say this, and I'll say it because we talked a little earlier about this, you know, and we looked at it and we instituted this. Crescent Springs did it at the same time. When we did it here, I don't remember anybody coming and being opposed to it. But I was at a Crescent Springs meeting, and the only company that showed up was Rimke's. And they had a legitimate point. You know, here we are with all of our freezers, the large square footage that we have. You know, this is going to be, you know, more on us than it is the normal citizen. You're right, it is. But I can also tell you this, that our police officers are at Rimke's every day. I don't think they're at your house every day. I know they're not at my house every day. So, I mean, you know, you got to look at it in that way. You know, those companies are paying more because they're using more energy. There's no doubt they are. So, you know, what's the fair way to do it? We can debate that all night long, either way, you know, how to do it. But I will say this, if in fact you go to a unit fee or a parcel fee, and if Rimke's was that, and I'm just using them as an example because Rimke's is a great place, it's not a bad place, I'm just using that as an example, they would pay that $45 or $65, whatever it would be, that one fee, the same as you and I would be. But I can tell you that they're using the services more than what you or I are using them.
Apartment buildings too. I know we talked about that.
Right.
Do you do units or do you do the one big housing? Because I think that's what Kent County does.
They do.
it by-
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
And so it's like, you know, you get more calls there.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I sat with the judge executive before he was the judge executive at Starbucks in Crestview Hills Mall. And we sat having a cup of coffee talking about that same thing. And I said, we're sitting right here. And I said, what is this, one parcel? It's Crestview Hills Mall, one parcel, town center now, not mall anymore, town center. Is it one parcel? And yeah, if it's one parcel, they're paying one fee, the same as you are for your house and everything else. So, I mean, we could debate whether it's fair, you know, 1,000 times and which way is better, who's going to pay more on which way or that way. And to be quite honest, this whole issue is a statewide issue. It's you know, while it's been pushed back to the locals, the state is going to have to make some kind of decisions at some point in time.
I feel like it's already in place. It's worked. Needs to work some more. Are we gonna let anybody else? This gentleman over here has raised his hand a couple times. Is he gonna be allowed to say?
That's up to the mayor. That's
Yeah, I'd be open to it.
fine.
Come on up to the microphone, if you wouldn't mind, state your name and address.
I own a building here in Erlanger, 32 Kenton Land Road, the old reliable truck building that I lease out to airport towing, airport body. There's a martial arts and then a fitness place. Okay, we only have one electric meter, one gas meter for the whole building, so I've got to divvy up the cost for the people there based upon our license amount of electric I think they've used and that. And they're fairly happy with that until I get down to the taxes and fees. And one of them was what they've complained about was your franchise fee at 3% of my total electric bill or gas bill. Okay, as of today, I've paid $864 in a franchise fee for this one building, where we used to have 5 landlines, which was, what, $15 a month, and now I'm up to $864. You know, I know you've got to come up with some reasonable way to cover the 9/11 costs, okay? He brought up, well, you've got extra people going to Remke's for police, all that. Well, we've got a business there that's paying employment taxes to you all in Erlanger, which is supposed to cover some of those costs. Okay, same way with Remke's, any of the big, you know, there's an employment tax on their salary, which is part of this coverage. Again, I know it's fairly hard to come up with a way to cover all your costs, but I think, you know, looking at a house, my son owns a house in Erlanger. Okay, he works at about $2.25 a month on even billing, so that works out $6 something a month. Well, if you figure in the parcel fees at Kenton County, that's coming up, it's fairly close, $68, $72, that's about right. I think with the businesses, you're putting a heavy burden on them to cover all your 9/11 costs. I think the best, if you're going to do the franchise fee, it should be capped as a certain amount per month that can be taken out. You know, if I have a $4,000 bill for the month, 3%, that's $120 that month I'm paying in a franchise fee. You could cap that fee at, say, $30, you know, up to $30 a month, something like that. To me, it's not fair that, you know, we're paying employment taxes, we're paying taxes on the building, and then we get a heavier burden on the 9/11 fee, which, you know, is covered by other means too. And another thing, you know, it's not your fault, but the way Duke Energy figures up their bills is they take 3% of whatever your subtotal of your gas electric bill is. The first thing they do is they add in your franchise fee. Now they've boosted up my subtotal. Now they take out a rate increase for schools at 3% based upon a new subtotal, and then add that in and then come up with a higher cost to get 6% sales tax. So if you were to figure it up straight across the board, you know, the rate increase for schools is coming up like 3.1%. State taxes come up 6.25% because of the way they're adding it up. But again, that's not your fault. That's the way Duke Energy's doing it. But my deal is I think, you know, a lot of your businesses cover a lot of your costs for the cities and other means of employment, taxes, otherwise the revenue on their sales. And now you're putting a heavy burden on them for the 9/11 fee. If you could cap that fee at a certain amount per month, I think that would go a long way for relations with businesses in the city and bringing people here.
Okay.
That's all I have.
And just for the record, would you mind stating your name?
David Gray.
Okay, thank you, David.
Again, my property is 32 Kenton Lance Road.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What would that do to the agreement if we were to modify it, something like that, to put a cap?
They have to amend the ordinance.
I'm more concerned about the fuzzy math. Mine's only $6 or $7, and I'm not, you know, I understand when he's talking about this, that, you know, you add it all together, you take a percent of this, then you take something else off, and you take a percent of that, and you just keep on going until you get the figure where you want it. I'm gonna look at mine when I get home.
This is the way Duke does all of it, even in your household. Find out how add the taxes in, and then the rate increases, sales tax. They're making a killing on all these little extras. 0.1%, 0.2% of everybody's bill, and then but again, that's not your old problem. You're talking 9/11.
All right. Kyle?
Yeah, I have a question. Like when you do your taxes at the end of the year as a business, don't you in fact get that counted off as an expense, the entire electric bill?
Yes, I mean, as far as the revenue you want to bring in,
Right.
you know, it's all set down.
I mean, yeah, that would offset it some, so. I agree with you. I don't think Duke, I don't like the way they're doing their math either. I think they should just take flat out whatever you owe them and then do the little taxes on that one amount, not keep adding it, escalating it. That's just wrong. I don't know if we can do anything about that, though.
I mean, like I said, that's not your problem.
No.
I take it up with Duke Energy and I just get
That's like a lot of these places, like even Cincinnati Bell, when I had Cincinnati Bell, you'd call them up and say, what's this tax? Half the time, they didn't even know. Oh, we shouldn't be charging that, and it's terrible, yeah.
Randy, sorry.
I was just thinking what he said here. It sounds like the major problem is the way Duke is doing things rather than the city, because he said before he had 5 landlines and it was $15 a fee per month for landline. If you multiply that, that's $900 a year, and he's paid $864 per year, and we're in November. So I don't know that that actually is a big increase one way or the other. So it sounds to me like the bigger problem is the way Duke is tacking things on more than the franchise fee.
I mean, it was at $350 for landlines, so you're looking at $15 a month.
Okay.
15 for the whole facility.
Okay, I misunderstood what you said.
I thought it was too.
Okay.
I thought that
That
as
is a
well.
difference then, okay.
Our fee was never $350. It was $4 1/4 or $4.75 when we got rid of it. I'm not sure which one it was, but it wasn't $350. So it was $4.75 or $4.25 per line. And that was capped. You could only have 25 per building. So you get a place like Convergys out here that has, I don't know how many lines, you still only got 25. So it was capped at that.
If we did that, we'd be very short on what we need to cover these expenses. Absolutely. If we did that, though, we'd be very short on what we need to cover these expenses.
So we're not sure how that would work and even how you would go about refunding it, even if you could do it because they collect it. It would have to be refunded, I'm guessing, through us, would be my guess. I don't know, because I'm pretty sure Duke wouldn't refund it if we capped it. And they're probably in their billing system aren't going to cap it for you and say, boom. So yeah, there are issues. That's what I said. I'm not sitting up here and saying that there's any plan that's just perfect in how to do this, because somebody is going to have the burden, you know, and how we spread that burden out is a good one. I can tell you, we don't go to 32 Kitten Lands Road. I read the police and fire reports every day. I know almost every business in his building, and we don't go to 32 Kent Lands Road. So there are those issues too on the other side of that. So, you know, he's right on those things.
Are there any other businesses similar to that one where they have like 5 different things all together?
There's several places. There's several places like that on that would have
Heard
units.
any complaints from them or not?
No. They may be out there. You know, those same feelings are probably out there with a number of people. You know, so the answer is, or the question is, I don't know what the answer to that question is, but the question is, you know, what is the fairest way that we move forward and how to do this? You know, we were talking about it a lot this evening about how to do it and look at it. You know, we don't know, because we can't get these numbers, you know, how much of that revenue comes from businesses or how much of that revenue comes from residential. We don't know. It's not broken down that way. When Duke sends us that money, it's not that way. You know, so we can't get those answers, or at least right now. We don't have those answers. So
Just for the sake of argument, Mark and I were talking earlier, and if we look at the portion that funds the 911 that comes from the gas and electric franchise fee, $650,000. And, you know, just for the sake of argument, we didn't have exact numbers here, but we were trying to estimate how many parcels there would be in the city. And thinking that we have 7,500 homes, and if we said we had 300 businesses, and you know, but these are all approximates, and then there's going to be vacant lots too. So we just said 100 vacant lots just to start to get an order of magnitude here. 7,900 parcels. We'd be charging $82.28 per parcel to equal that same $650,000, which is pretty doggone close. I mean, the county is raising their rate back up to $85.
well, I'm not sure they did that. They were proposing to do that, but I'm not so sure it passed.
Oh,
But they were proposing it. But I'll tell you this, the county's fee at $60 or $65, I don't even think at the $85. They're running about $1 million deficit that they're funding.
If I may, I just paid my tax, so it's only 60.
60, right, okay.
This
Yeah, they were going to, they were proposed to do that, somehow that came
Okay.
off the board. And that would have only, that increase to 80 or 85 would have only covered that deficit.
Wow.
It wouldn't have done anything for ongoing expenses that they're going to be incurring with the new radio system or whatever. But, so it's an issue.
Yeah, and so then also, again, kind of estimating, trying to figure out how many units there are in the city. And based off the information that we've gotten from the rental permit fee. Again, we're probably conservatively low on any of these, but thinking that we would probably add about 1,600 units to that number, so it would get us up to about 9,500 units if we were to charge that way, which would get us to about $68.42 per unit.
But then what we didn't add into that, which would probably lower that number a little bit more, are buildings like this gentleman's, who has that one building, but he's got 4 different units inside that one building, so that would be 4. You know, we were looking at the plazas, you know, so take the Kroger Plaza, Silver Lake Plaza. You know, is there 10 in that one? So
Yeah,
what are those
probably.
numbers? We could get those numbers. Now, it's going to take us a little bit of time to do it. You know, our fire department's in all these buildings every year. It is. That still does not take care of your billing problem and how you collect it.
Right.
That's the whole other question here, how we do that. Whether we get that true number and then it would come down, and, you know, if that number comes down to a reasonable amount of $40, $50 a year, which it might do. It might come down that low.
Yeah, but then you have absentee landlords.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's a huge issue.
What if a unit's vacant,
Yeah.
you know?
And the way Campbell County wrote theirs was occupied. So that's the whole difference. And I think when I read it, it said occupied November 1st.
I mean, that's an
So-
enforcement nightmare.
Yeah,
How do you
it is an
track that?
enforcement nightmare. I don't know how you go about doing it, to be quite
If we
honest.
were gonna go to a flat, it would be easiest to do the same thing that Kenton County's doing, and just add it to the tax bill. I mean, I would think we'd be able to,
How do you collect it? You can add it to the tax bill, but how do you collect it?
well, we would have probably a good estimate of what's not being paid. We know what our delinquent bills are, right?
Huh. Frank, you correct me if I'm wrong, but we had this discussion before. It's not your property tax. So it doesn't go through the same part of it. It's a fee that's been put on there. So you can pay your taxes, don't pay the fee. What's the repercussions for us? It's not a tax lien on your house because it's not a tax. So now we have to go through the criminal justice system. It's filed as a misdemeanor or as county and that's the way Kenton County has put it on their ordinance too, as a misdemeanor. So what are our how recourse for that? That was the whole kicker with that one. Yeah. And they asked Gary Edmondson, he was in office at the time, what he was going to do. Was he going to file charges against these people? And it was kind of like, well, wait a minute. I don't know. And I don't know. Mr. Engelman obviously had several years in Covington and several years in Newport, and there were several fees that they put on and tried to collect, and he said it was a pure nightmare of trying to collect any of those. The garbage fee was one that he put up that was a really, really bad deal for all those cities. I think we had some experience with that in the past. Yeah. So,
Well, I think ultimately, we have a little bit of time to make a decision here. I mean, especially if we're going to stay the same course. It still would have to go through the bid process, you know, so we'd still have to allow ourselves several months to be able to finalize this. But I think ultimately we have to look at the whole package somehow, you know, and look at where we are and how much we collect with each part and piece and each different tax. If we want to try to change anything, we really need to take a look, make sure we understand the whole picture, and it's not an easy picture to get a grasp on. And I don't know that we'd necessarily propose trying to put together a committee to look at that, or if that's, I think we could probably volunteer Greg to do that single-handedly, since he's not here tonight to defend
and
himself.
I think this is part of the conversation, and we talked earlier about this. This is part of the conversation that we need to have in this visioning session. And, what it is the goal. What is the goal for the whole package? I know there's been some discussion about other taxes and reducing other taxes and doing some things. It's good. But when we go about this haphazardly and we just cut to be cutting, we have to understand what the ramifications of that are. And I think the whole package, when we look at it, whether it be the franchise fee, whether it be the payroll tax, whether it be our gross receipts tax, whether it be our property tax, the insurance tax, any of those taxes, if we look at it, and our goal is to lower that, to be more appealing to businesses and residents and things like that, let's have a plan to do it. Let's have a goal set out and give us some time to do that. Then we have to figure out where we're going to make those cuts, because I'm telling you, you all know it.
We're bare bones.
Well, and I'm not. We can, we can work on all of those things, but we have to have a plan to get there and work on that. We can't make those decisions to do one thing because it's going to have repercussions later. This will have repercussions. If this runs out and we don't have something to replace it, something that we know is going to be stable, you're talking about $650,000.
Right.
Yes, we have some reserves. But if we take $650,000 out of it this year, $700,000 out of next year, then 5-6 years from now, we're going to be sitting in these council chambers, and those reserves aren't going to be here.
Right.
That's just a fact of life. Mm-hmm. There's no way to change that. So, I agree, and we've talked about that, today with Greg, and talked about looking at that, the whole picture of what it is, and give us some direction about where we want to go and where we want to be at, and a time frame to get there. And we'll get there. We're just going to have to make those decisions of which ones to go after and which ones to cut. Do we look at the property tax and say, okay, we're going to cut property tax first? That affects everybody. We know that affects everybody. I don't know. I'm just saying that. So this one, the franchise fee, we know that affects everybody. And we've just heard tonight it's maybe disproportionate about how it affects my household, compared to the business. There's no doubt he's paying more than I am. How's that work? But he's also paying more property tax because his building at 32 Kent Lands is worth more than my house is. But
Go ahead, Vicki.
The other caveat is if we go a different route, now we're going to be spending more money on personnel, bookkeeping, support costs. That would be a nightmare.
Right.
And, it's too bad we don't have the landlines, and we were fine with that, but, we had to take a different route unless we merge with another entity, which we hope we will in the future, to keep costs down, or if the state comes up with a plan. But I think for right now, I hate to say it, but I think we really need to stick to what we've got. Because we know it works. And we do need that 911. That's important to citizens. But like you said, it's a rough way to go. The way we are now, this poor guy, he's paying more than his share. But then if we go the other route, I don't know that we can support that. There's no easy answer.
No.
There's no easy answer.
How long, I'm just curious, Mr. Wickman and Mr. Gatlin, because I know we have to put this out for bid. So how many months do we need? Because this expires, does it expire July 1?
July.
Expired June 25th or something
Like that?
Last week of June.
So we need to make a decision when?
The problem isn't with the bidding process. The problem is with the time it takes for the utilities to get the Public Service Commission to approve the extension of their tariffs for another 3 years. I can't tell you what the answer to that is, but as I indicated when I brought this up, the answer is yes, you do have some time. Do you have a lot of time? I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we just went through this in Independence, and the whole process was 90-ish days to have that approval process. So I think this is something that, again, because Mr. Wickman has already done it all, and because we're in essence renewing something similar, at least that seems like, I think if council just directed Mr. Wickman to begin the process as soon as you guys are ready, I think that would probably be the best course.
That's fine.
no reason for us to wait to the last minute. Not saying it has to be done tonight, but I can tell you,
Right.
you know, you got 90 to 120 days to be safe. So what is that? March 1st?
March, yeah.
February 1st?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not November.
And we shouldn't push it to the last minute. And that's the whole question, you know, is this, and I think we looked at this 3 years ago as a temporary fix. I think, again, looking at it as that temporary fix, you know, whether, like I said, we can sit here and debate the fairness all night long. We're gonna get many different sides of that, on all the methods that we would use. It wouldn't make any difference which method we would use. We're gonna get that. I don't know. I personally, and you heard me say it at the last meeting, I like the unit fee. I love that. I think that that is probably the fairest way to go and look at this. However, it has a bunch of issues on the other side of it, you know, and if we could ever figure those issues out and how to really collect that and do it and enforce it, you know, that would probably be the fairest way to do this.
It almost feels we need to do both. One, renew it, but then try to understand what those issues are and how we would work around them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At least to have all of that information in front of us and say, hey, we know here's all the issues, here's what it would take if we decided to go to the unit fee. So hard to say right now. And we've got, you know, time constraints that we've got to deal with. So.
Yeah.
One answer to the timing problem could be is that we can publish the request for proposals and put an extended period of time to accept it, so that can begin the process of them going to the Public Service Commission.
Mm-hmm. But you don't ever have to pass the ultimate ordinances.
No, we don't have to pass any ordinances to do that.
That sounds like a plan.
How long does that buy us?
I'm sorry?
How long does that give us then?
Well,
I
we
mean,
can
still,
set-
we would have to,
We can phrase the request for proposals in such a manner that the city doesn't have to act on those proposals for 60, 90, whatever we want.
okay. But we would still have to take action in order to give them time before the June 25th or whatever that date is.
Yes.
For them to continue collecting that, right?
And for them to go to the Public Service Commission,
Right.
yes.
And what is the action that's required?
Only action required to continue as we are is to advertise for proposals from the utility companies, which is really ridiculous because you're only going to get 2 proposals.
Right.
One from Owen County and one from Duke. Why that's in there, I don't know, but that's a statutory requirement.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anywhere in the state where you have competition in utilities.
Well, the Public Service Commission
Right.
is designed to prevent it.
Right. I know, it is a quirk.
But there's no action required from council? Does council need to?
No, yes, there is. They would have to enact an ordinance accepting the bid of
After it's,
Duke and Owen County.
okay. But to initiate that, there would not be, okay,
It's not.
okay. Is there any other thoughts, idea?
Yeah, on that caveat too, that's presuming there's no change to the current franchise.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
if there's any kind of change to the current franchise, it would require a first and second reading of that new franchise.
I'm gonna get Renee a bell.
I think she's motioning to adjourn.
She's been trying to get somebody's
Go ahead, Renee.
attention for 10 minutes.
Go ahead.
Well, that's the payback for letting this gentleman talk. I wanted to direct some of my questions to this gentleman, okay? Am I allowed to do that?
Sure.
Okay. You have one building?
One building is 32,000 square feet.
But you have 5 businesses in that building?
There's 4 businesses.
4 businesses. Okay, and you pay all their electric for them?
Because there's only,
I pay the bill and then I break it out their usage.
There's only 1 meter for the whole
Oh,
building.
there's only 1 meter.
There's only one meter.
Well, don't you do fuzzy math then like Duke does and just divide that franchise fee among?
Yeah, you could make some money at this.
Oh, my goodness.
Individual gas meters on all the furnaces, so that's the biggest thing. The electric is based on the lights and that, you know, when I come in subtotal, I charge you 3% for their
So they were basically complaining to you about how you were dividing it out, and then you were coming to us with their complaint. You're not really complaining yourself, right?
Those are the ones that were complaining to me about it and asked me to say something since I'm the one in the building.
Yeah. Mr. Gray's concerned with keeping his tenants happy.
Right, but the 800, I don't, was it $800 that you're?
Right now, it's not, so far, it's $900 I've split up between.
Yeah, what we're doing is working until we.
Okay, so they're at 200-ish?
Yeah, the extension.
Okay, and what,
Wishing
I'm
this
at
hand
what?
and
What
shitting
am I
this
at for my whole year?
first.
And they've got more square footage to use too. What,
Probably 40 bucks,
40 bucks
50 bucks.
for the whole year? So far.
I was 361 last month. And the only reason I looked is because we were having a conversation about it. So.
That's the only reason I looked, because we were having a conversation.
But I hate to jump in here on this one, but, you know, you threw out the 300 businesses that we have, and we do. And we have a lot larger businesses than this gentleman's talking about, 32,000 square feet, okay? And I'm not saying, right. So, you know, all those other ones are out there, so you got to put this all in perspective about how that is, you know, what it is, so. I'm sure ADM, Wild Flavors, their utility bill's huge. I'm
Yeah,
sure
Mark
UDF.
brought up, UDF. Think about theirs.
But that clarified that with you.
Right. Oh, here.
Thank you.
So. It's all the same.
Any other questions, discussion? Well,
Walkie-talkies?
yeah, what's that?
We could get walkie-talkies.
I think we ought to just give out cell phone numbers. We'll just put cops and firemen and everything in cars. They just call the cell phone and they can just do directly. We'll just cut dispatch out completely.
There you go. Ouch.
I got fire and police sitting back here going to shoot.
I think they're
kill me,
nodding.
so.
I think they think it's a good idea.
You could like,
Thought it was funny, I guess, what they're doing. But no, I mean, that's, you know, dispatch is much more than answering
It
a
is,
911
yes.
call
Oh,
and
that's
sending people.
for
But,
sure.
but yeah.
So are we going to go forward with the bid process and then at the same time also try to gather some additional information around what that unit would look like? Is that what we decided?
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't require a vote.
No.
It's us talking about it. And
And we can put some numbers together.
it sounds like overall, the consensus is to continue with the way that it is.
I think, I mean, with the time constraint, you know, I mean, this is really an in-depth issue. I mean, really in-depth. And we could certainly accomplish it in a 3-year period, I would think. You know what I'm saying?
I like Mr.
Yeah, I
Meyer's
mean,
idea.
This is amazing that we come this close financially, in my opinion.
It is.
Amazing.
I agree.
And it's working,
And it's working,
so let's don't break it.
and our citizens are safe.
I mean, if there was a way that we could work on it in the meantime,
Oh, yeah.
to try to figure out how we could do it by unit, you know, being that would be
Yeah,
the
like I
most fair
said,
way.
but if we went
but-
ahead and signed this agreement, you'd have 3 years to study that.
Yes.
And by then, KLC may come up with something that might be acceptable by everybody.
Who knows? I mean, you know, maybe
Yeah.
Northern, maybe one of the colleges that want to take it on as a project. Who knows?
But right now, I
Yeah.
agree, it's working. We need to keep it intact, what we're doing. And like I said, you know, you say a couple of years, KLC, they come up with some idea, Patty come up with an idea, get the university to work with it on it. I mean, but right now, it's working.
Do you think it would be possible, I mean, I know this is more a question for Greg, but what, do you think it would be possible to try to get that overall look at where all the revenue comes from each different tax and each different fee and?
I think I think we can do that. We had that conversation today. There's going to be some, and it's going to be very difficult. Like we talked about, just using, you can use this for an example. this fee. We can't tell you how much comes from business or how much comes from residential. We can't do it. The insurance premium tax is exactly the same way. We can't tell you that. When the insurance companies report that to the state, it's collected by the state, it is then sent us back. They do it by policy type. They don't do it by business or whatever. So we don't know, you know, if this casualty or this health or life or whatever it may be, we don't know if it's coming from a business. We don't know if it's coming from a private individual. We don't know those kind of things. And we can't get that information. The same way we're not going to be able to get this information about from Duke probably saying, is this from a business or is this from a residential, commercial, whatever it's from. That we're not collecting it, so we can't get that information. I talked to the people in the state insurance offices this past week, and that information, they can tell you the types, but they cannot tell you who it comes from.
Right.
You know, so
Well, to
because
me,
the
it's-
insurance companies aren't required to report that.
It sounds like we will go ahead and continue with the route that we're on and the percentages that we've got right now. And I think just as a group, we're going to have to resolve to try to find a better way. And if we're going to try to find efficiencies in other ways that we can to, you know, unfortunately, there's not really one, you know, we can't just cut it out. And at this point, can't even really necessarily see where we can trim that down. But
Right.
until we look at the whole picture, maybe we can try to find some of those
Right, right.
efficiencies.
Yeah, I think we need to put that on our list of things to do before the next contract expires.
So is that the direction that I'm going, trying to get all these numbers together and look at that and trying to put as much clarity to those kind of things as possible?
Yeah.
But we'll move forward with this to have this in place. Okay.
All right. With that, I'd entertain a motion that we adjourn. Motion by Mr. Blankenship.
I was
What-
supposed to say one thing.
Okay.
This is not an item. Our holiday get-together, all right, is going to be, let me get this straight, on December 15th, okay? So that happens to be a committee night. So hopefully we won't have a committee meeting that night. Or if we do, it'll be a short one, because trust me, next week's is going to be very long. Sherry's got 5 different things on there, all right?
Oh, we
Ed-
need to fire her.
Yeah, we're going to the
Oh, we haven't
Edgewood.
gotten there yet.
We're going to the Edgewood Senior Center, okay? So, 6 o'clock.
Today, we'll be able to go to the Erlanger Senior Citizen Center.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is my dream.
We'll put it on your epitaph.
You want to put it on my epitaph?
Okay. Yeah. And Miss Sudkamp had a dream.
Get a dream.
It is a good dream, but again, we have to pay for it. So how do we pay for that? So, yeah.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mrs. Kyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.